Alrighty, it looks like I am live. But hold on one quick second. Let me verify that on Facebook. Hold on. All right, it's looking like it. It's looking like it. Mm. All right. Excuse me. Hold on. Okay. Wait. Alrighty, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you all are tuning into this broadcast. I am your international award-winning author, filmmaker, and empowerment specialist, Tennille M. Jackson, and I want to welcome you guys to a very special podcast. We are 8 days before Christmas. Many times I do not um, kind of like identify where we are time wise. So it's kind of like putting the clock on, but I don't care, y'all. It's holiday time. So I am very excited. It is December 17th, and we're talking about fears today. So I want to kind of go into it. But before I do, y'all already know the rules of protocol, which is pretty much number one, say hello. If you are watching, be sure to say hello so that way I can speak back. Number two, like and share the video. Number three, tag somebody that you believe will benefit from this broadcast. And as I am saying that, guess what? I'm about to do the exact same thing. So, y'all give me one quick second because I want to be able to tag some folks too. But y'all feel free to come on and speak to me. Let me know that you are watching. Let me tell you guys, I really appreciate you guys. I cannot believe that number one, Christmas is in 8 days. Number two, I can't believe that we are literally right around the corner from a new year. Hey, Madison. But again, I want to thank everybody who typically tunes in to me, who supports me. It's been a lot of stuff going on, y'all, and maybe I'll go into it, maybe I won't, who knows, because you know how I am, just all over the place. But I want to definitely talk about this because y'all know how I am about helping folks. So today, that's what I want to do. I want to help a few people, and we're gonna see what we see. How about that? We're gonna see what we see. So in either case, I just got finished tagging a couple people. But as you all come on again, as you guys come on, please feel free to say hello. Let me know that you are watching. If you have excuse me, if you have any questions, then make sure that you ask whatever questions that you may have as well. And so I want to appreciate everybody that is watching or listening. Thank you very much. So you all can hear I still have some congestion going on when I tell you, girl. These last few weeks, y'all would not believe the weeks that it has been. But I just thank God for being able to be on the other side of it. And I will say this too. A lot of times when we're in the storm, I know that sometimes it can be hard to see yourself on the other side of it, right? Like sometimes, hey Jason, hey Milo, sometimes when you're in a storm, I don't care what caused it, but sometimes whether it's a financial storm, a physical storm, so maybe you're sick, you're ill, whatever the case may be, professional, no matter what type of storm it is, a lot of times when we're in it, we can be in it so deep that it doesn't seem like it's going to ever end, right? But that's why it's so important that you are able to maintain your positive mind. Hey, Kristen, it's so important that you're able to maintain a positive mindset. It's so important that you are able to understand and always remember that the storm will pass. And so, like I say, I'm not 100% past this cold flu thing that I have been going through, but I'm good enough where I'm able to take to the microphone. And I wanted to talk today. Today's show is, Are Your Fears Holding You Back? And so I want to talk about this not just in a traditional way of, well, you need to get over yourself, not that, but really where we are taking the time to kind of examine why we allow our fears. What is it about our fears that we allow them to hold us back, right? And that's really what I want to go into. So if you know anybody who has been allowing fear of whatever it may be, because again, in this show, so disclaimer, I don't have any type of MD behind my name. I am not a certified anything. So therefore, I'm not going to focus on a particular issue. I'm not going to focus on an anxiety disorder, or not going to focus on any of those things, because I am not certified to walk you through your particular issue. However, I can speak to the root cause. And that's what we really want to talk about. Like, what is the root cause? Now, hey, Elena, now sometimes there are things that are legitimately things that can, so we know that many people have fears of different things, right? So this show is not to make light of anybody who has fears. This is not to make fun of anybody that has whatever the fear is. My old pastor, excuse me, before he passed away, my old pastor, he used the acronym. The acronym he used for fear was false evidence appearing real, right? And so I just want to make sure that I put out there, because I want you to understand that this is a safe space. Hey, Coach Adrian. This is a safe space. So I want for you to feel comfortable with commenting, if you are struggling with fear, what that fear may be. Like, we have all types of fears. Some people have fear of dying. Some people have fears of being alone. Some people have fears of, I'll tell you one of mine that I struggled with for the longest time. I don't know what caused it and why it was, but fear of bridges. Like, oh my goodness. Like, when you're driving, that whole bridge thing, when the bridge comes up, there is something about seeing that bridge all the way. It's not even about the height situation. It's just the seeing the bridge come up. And it was a real thing for me for a long time. And I'll talk later on how I was able to overcome that. But again, it is so many different fears that exist. But the point is not just understanding that the fears exist, but we have to be able to get to a place to understand the root of the fear, right? Like, why is it that we have this fear? Because the fact, what I can tell you, the fact is that you were not born with it. You were not born having whatever your fear is. Something happened in life that gave you to be fearful of this thing. But the fact is that because you were not born with it, it is not something that you have to deal with. Many times we just kind of get into a posture of acceptance where we just accept the fact that this is something that makes us afraid. We accept the fact that this is just something that plays with our mind. And what I'm proposing is that you be more proactive in being victorious over your fear, right? Especially if and when said fear is causing you to not fully walk in your purpose, especially if and when said fear holds you back from being who you are purposed to be. It's like, okay, well, I know that I am purposed to be a speaker, but like, I know that I have a story, I know I have a message, but I'm afraid of what people may say. You got to figure out how to deal with that. Like, okay, I know I'll use the fear of bridges. I'm afraid of the bridge, but the thing that I'm trying to get to is on the other side of that bridge. So, am I never going to allow myself to get to the other side of the bridge because I'm afraid of going over the bridge? And the unfortunate truth is that many people allow their fears to hold them back. Many people allow their fears to make it where they never reach that ultimate goal. They never, that ultimate, that potential that they have, that thing that's in them. Hey, Ronald, hey, Matthew, like they never reach it because they've allowed this false evidence that appears real, right? And again, you're talking to somebody who for a long time dealt with anxiety attacks, dealt with panic attacks. So I understand that, how the mind can play tricks on us, right? Um, and there's a cliche that talks about mind over matter. So you have to be able to strengthen your mind so that you're not allowing what is meant for you to continuously be held back from you getting it, right? So I'm hoping that everybody is with me. Hey, Ernest, I'm hoping that everybody is with me. And again, as we go on, feel free to say hello. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chats. Even those who are listening from Zoom, feel free to inbox whatever your issue, if you have any questions or whatever. And you guys can also, those who are on Noon Vibe, you guys can come to the microphone. And like I say, our etiquette adjusts a little bit when I'm going live visually, because what I ask is that you just keep your cue time limited to asking your question or making your comment briefly, as opposed to the full 10 minutes that Noom normally allots us. Hey, Miss Jennifer, but let's get into it a little bit more, right? So we're talking about fears. And again, the reason, and actually, we're not talking about fears. We're talking about being able to overcome that thing, right? Because again, anybody that knows me knows we can talk about the issue. I'll never have a problem talking about the issue. But we're not going to focus on the problem. We're not staying dwelling on the problem. Let's talk about it. But then we're going to move to solution now that we've talked about it, what we're going to do about it, right? So feel free, if you guys have any fears, put in the comments what your fears are. If you're not afraid or embarrassed to put your fears, put it in the comments, because here's the truth. There are certain things that even if we address it, it doesn't change it. Meaning this, if you say, I'm afraid of dying, okay, guess what? The fact of the matter is that we all are going to die. So I'm not guaranteeing you that because you put whatever your fear is in the comment that we're going to be able to overcome it. Because again, that's why I just said at the top of the show, I am not a certified psychologist, a licensed therapist. I'm not any of that. So we're not going to focus on the fear itself. But what we want to do is figure out some things that we can do to be able to get us on the other side of it, regardless of what the fear may be, right? So let's talk about one of the greatest fears that people say all the time. They're afraid to fail. So I have a fear of failure. Now, I think when we look at the root cause of that, because again, saying that nobody was born with a fear. So somewhere along the line, we picked up this fear, right? And so I believe that no matter what it is, so when we're talking about a fear of failure, I think that once upon a time, somewhere along the line, you had your goals set on something. It was something that you wanted to do. It really meant a lot to you, but you were unable to achieve or accomplish that thing. And so, like, and it wasn't just the fact that you may not have achieved it, but what happened on the other side? Maybe you were punished, maybe you were embarrassed, maybe you were laughed at, maybe you didn't receive whatever it was that you wanted. So something happened that may have traumatized you. But here's the thing, you have to be able to identify. So the first thing that I'm going to say, again, I'm giving different examples, but we're not talking about any one particular fear. But in general, you have to be able to identify your fear for yourself, right? Like, you got to get to a place where it's, I don't want to keep living in the fear. I don't want to keep living with the fear. I don't want the fear to keep overcoming me. So, the first thing, you got to be real with yourself. The first thing, you have to have a conversation with yourself to identify, okay, what is it that's holding me back? What is it that I'm afraid of? So once you identify what it is, now you got to find a way to coexist until you can find a way to overcome, right? So I can acknowledge the fact that this thing is legitimate, but what was the root of it? Where did it come from? Why all of a sudden? Why now? And then what you will typically find is that it's not that it just happened today. Maybe this fear, because again, many times we don't sit with our fears. We don't sit and analyze on why, because we're afraid. Doesn't that make sense? Like, we don't want to sit and talk about the thing that makes us afraid. Why? Because we're afraid of it. But here's the irony. Many times when you confront your fear, that's the exact way that you overcome it. So I'll go into sharing. I talked earlier about how for me, I had, hey, Christine, hey, Cher, hey, Ray, Philip, Reno, all of y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Um, but I had a genuine, for not years, y'all, decades, decades, I had a genuine fear of bridges, not just walking over them. I had a fear of driving over 'em. I ain't like them. I ain't like them. I don't, to this day, I still can't tell you why. Like, it's not that I ever got caught on the bridge. I don't know what it is, but I know that, for many, 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 many years, um, if there was a different route, I would take it, right? But what happened was, this was in 2021. This was, so again, it's relatively, recent. 2021, me and my girls, we were in New Orleans, and no, I ain't from New Orleans, y'all. So, like, in Chicago, if it's a bridge, I know 5011 routes to go around it. So that way I don't have to go the route where the bridge is. Well, in New Orleans, I didn't know no other routes. We were going a particular place. I knew this particular way that the GPS said, and this was the only way that the GPS said. And, admittedly, the few days, 'cause I think we were there for like a week or so. And like the first couple days after day one, I'm like, so what I'm gonna need? I'm gonna need it to never be a time where this bridge actually raises, right? Because when the first day I saw, because whatever, I don't even remember, maybe it was the French Quarters, for those of you who have been to New Orleans before. Like, I think maybe it's the French Quarters that we were going to. So we had to cross this bridge every day, because that was the whole reason why we went to, judge us later, but the whole reason why we went to New Orleans was because we wanted some beignets. My daughter's 15th birthday, and she wanted some beignets and gumbo. And I'm like, where better to go than New Orleans? And so we went there. And so every day, the a part of the itinerary was to get beignets every day. Again, judge us later, yeah. Hashtag Greedy Girl Chronicles. And so, anywho, when on day one, when I'm seeing that, oh, we got to cross a bridge to get here. So, like, I'm like, okay, God, please don't let the bridge race. So, day one, day two, I think even day three, bridge didn't raise. So we get to day four. And on top of that, it was at night. So even if I would have wanted to try to figure out a different route, we at night in a foreign city. I ain't trying to figure it out. It's me and the girls. I'm trying to keep us safe. And I'm sitting there. And normally, if a bridge comes, again, I don't sit there and look at it. I will go the whole other way. I'm just, because it's not a good sight. Okay. But here, I allowed myself to look at this bridge and all of the anxiety and all of the panic that was arising on the inside of me. I legitimately started speaking to it. And I'm like, no, I am not going to allow myself to continue to be afraid. I am not going to allow the fact that I have to cross a bridge to prevent me from going where I need to go, right? And so, even though for me, I'm talking about a literal bridge, think about just in your general lives how a bridge, there could be something that your fear is preventing you from getting to the other side of, right? So maybe you want to be an entrepreneur, but you're afraid of doing things by yourself. So that's preventing you from starting. You're afraid of, bankruptcy. You're afraid of whatever it is. Because again, it's not to judge you, it's not to make you feel bad because your fear is legitimate for you. But it is to say that there comes a point when you have to make a conscious decision and you have to say, do I want to continue to be bound by my fear or not? And you have to believe that you have the power to overcome your fear. You have to believe that this is not something that just has to dictate how your life ends up, right? And so, like I said, I just wanted to come on and just really talk about it, because we're about to enter a new year. And there are a lot of people, when as a coach, I talk to a lot of different people on a lot of different regards. And one of the, along with procrastination, obviously, right? So like when I'm talking to my clients and I'll ask, what do you feel like is your biggest hindrance? Like, because at the end of the day, as a coach, there's only so much that I can do. Because at the end of the day, my sister would say at the end of the day gonna end. But at the end of the day, you have to want whatever it is, whatever the reason is that you're working with me, you have to want it more for you than I do. And so I can identify all the reasons in the world and all the solutions in the world, but you have to be willing to put in the work, right? And so we got to get to a place where we're no longer going to just be making excuses. Well, if this wouldn't have happened, I would have. Well, if that wouldn't have happened, I would have. Okay, but it did happen. So that means that you'll never, so as long as a bridge, go back to my example. So as long as a bridge raises, you ain't never gonna try to get to the other side. You're never gonna try to figure out, okay, well, and again, sometimes it could be as simple as saying, well, just take a different route. But what happens if the only way to get what you want is by having to deal with your fear, right? So many people allow that fear to overtake them, to overcome them, to shut them down. And so what my prayer is for you all, as we are, coming closer, like literally 2 weeks from tomorrow, we are in a new year. Okay. 2 weeks from tomorrow, we're in a new year. And I don't want for anybody to not have what's purposed for you, what's meant for you, right? And we have to understand that there is a part that we also have to play. For those of you, hey, Miss Kimberlyn, for those of you who are believers, yes, there's a phrase that says, what God has for you is for you, and that is true. But you gotta get it. He not gonna come and knock on your door and hand deliver it to you. So it's like, what are you willing to do to get it? What are you willing to change? What are you willing to adjust? What lifestyle changes are you going to, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's going to start with you. And a lot of times it's easy to point the fingers at everybody else, to blame other people, to say, well, if this person wouldn't have. But at some point, we got to be adults for real, and we have to learn to accept accountability. We have to learn to say, okay, you know what? Even if a thing actually did happen, even if a person actually did whatever, now what? Now what do I do? Like, even if this fear actually does seem real for me, okay, now what? Am I going to, like, let's say if you feel like, your purpose to travel the world and you got to get there by boat, but you're afraid of the water. You see I'm trying to go, like, I'm making light of it, but it's a very serious topic at the same time. And so my hope, my prayer for everybody is that you take a step. First of all, talk to yourself, and talking to yourself is healthy. Like, everybody, the unfortunate part is everybody is not able to be objective with themselves. It is great to give yourself grace, but you also have to be at a place where you don't just give yourself grace, but you are also real with yourself. So, not, I ain't talking about your own worst enemy, beating yourself up, but I'm talking about honestly being able to be objective, to say, to bring yourself to the table and to have this conversation. Hey, Rochelle, to say, hey, did this year go the way that I wanted it to go? Okay. Now, this is not the end of the year show, y'all. I may do an end of the year show, I may not. But this is not the end of the year show where we do the whole reflection on what went well, what didn't go well. This show, we are simply looking at fear. We're simply saying, when I look back over 2024 and the things that I thought that I was going to do, and I don't just mean professionally, right? Like, maybe personally, you either thought you were going to start a relationship or end one, whether it's a romantic relationship or business relationship. Like, there was something in your life. Maybe you thought you were going to lose weight, you were going to start working out. Like, literally, sit down with yourself and ask yourself, like, what did I think this year in January? What was I hoping that December would look like? And if you did not, first of all, if y'all didn't make any, if you didn't put no plans in place, that's a whole nother show. I'm gonna talk to y'all. We're gonna get y'all together for January 2025, because we ain't gonna go now another year without having some plans in place. Like, we gotta have some things that we're wanting to happen, because if you don't put anything out there, never mind, never mind. Focus. Go back. Here's my point. You gotta be able to look and see, because I know, and again, one of the reasons why I'm bringing this show to light is because, while allowing the anonymity of my clients, I still think, like, I've had too many clients this year alone who fear was the reason that they named. Like, even if they didn't say, "Oh, fear held me back," no, but when they started giving the reasons why they hadn't done X, Y, or Z, the bottom line was, it was fear. And I'm like, mm, this is a real thing. And we need to speak on this. And we need to be able to get empowered to move beyond fear. First of all, we have to understand that fear is something that, e- whether you meant to or not, you created it in your own head. And let me tell you what I mean, because I don't mean that it's not real. Claustrophobia is the fear of tight spaces. Claustrophobia is a real thing. But did you notice everybody ain't claustrophobic, right? There are some people who are afraid of tight spaces and some people who are not. There are certain, like I say, there are certain genuine things that people are, but if you are dedicated to the process of saying, hey, I don't want for it to get the best of me. Let me give another personal share, since we're talking about claustrophobia. Yeah, I was that person. Didn't really like tight spaces too much, right? Still, I'm not necessarily best friends with tight spaces, but and I think for me, honestly, one of the reasons why I'm not best friends with tight spaces because I'm a big girl, and you just don't want. You ever notice just to lighten this up a little bit? Wherever you see them movies or TV shows where people are getting saved, they ain't never saving nobody that's over like 140 pounds. I don't never see them where they picking anybody up that's more like 125, and this is not me saying that everybody need to be a certain weight. This is me explaining to you why, as somebody who is not 120, 30, 40, 50, 60, or however many pounds, I ain't none of them pounds. So therefore, for me, she ain't trying to get no little tight spaces that she can't get out of by herself. Okay. But anyway, being going back serious real quick, being a stroke survivor, one of the procedures that you become very acquainted with is an MRI. And for those of you who do not know what an MRI is pretty much this. So the point of it is to capture images, like images of your brain, but it really kind of looks like a casket a little bit, and it really genuinely feels like they're burying you alive. Okay, because your entire body, they like slags you in on this automatic bed, if you will. And so you ain't got no moving room, okay? You not moving no you right here the whole time. And they tell you, the first thing they tell you is, because they'll ask you if you're claustrophobic. And if you say yes, the first thing they will tell you is don't open your eyes. So everybody can answer this question. So what's the first thing that you gonna do after somebody tell you, after somebody say to you, don't, whatever it is, first thing you gonna do, you tell me don't open my eyes. Of course I want to look. Why are you telling me don't open my eyes, right? And I'll never forget the first MRI. At this point, I'm a pro at it, and it doesn't bother me anymore. But and the reason why I'm bringing this up because I'm going to give you my solution of how I overcame it. But the point is, when I first had my very first MRI, and I'm in there like, okay, well, don't open your eyes. So as soon as they will me, well, roll me in or whatever, I opened my eyes and I almost passed out. When I tell you how much I was reading, because they'll give you this panic button, and I'm just ringing this thing, and they hurry up and they put me out. So they were good at doing that, but now it's messed up, and you have to be in there for 45 minutes, okay? 45 of them. And so it's not for the faint at heart, because again, for me, this is a very real fear. And for most people, whatever it is you fear, it is very real for you. But here's the point that I'm making: you can overcome. And again, I'm not a licensed anybody, so I can't say with 100% certainty, but it for all of my examples, you're able to overcome them. They do offer bigger machines for claustrophobic folk. Well, girl, I ain't seen one yet, Kimberly. They ain't gave me a bigger one, okay? They keep putting me in the same size with somebody that's half my size, okay? So it's like me and somebody that's half the size of me. They put me in the same machine, all right? And so I'm just like laying here, and I've had so many done, and like I pretty much, you kind of become friends with the people because you got to go so often, whatever. So they started having these masks, which was great. So when you put the mask on, and this is what's so crazy too, they tell you don't open your eyes. So you got to fight hard not to open your eyes, because as soon as you open your eyes, you see how close the top of that machine is to you. Like when I say, you talking about maybe 5 or 6 inches from your forehead to the top of the machine. And I think I'm being kind by saying 5 or 6 inches. I think it's more like 2 or 3 inches. Like you just barely got enough room to breathe. Okay. So but when they gave me the mask, it was crazy because then I could open my eyes and all I saw was black. And that I was comfortable with that, but the point is what I figured out, I'm like, okay, if I am, they very wrong for that. But what I figured out is that okay, I have to have this procedure done. Because again, keep in mind, I was 24, right at 25 when I had my first stroke. They didn't understand why somebody that young was having a stroke. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. Okay. First time that I had my first MRI, it was like 7 spots that came back on my brain. My initial diagnosis before they diagnosed me with a stroke, they thought that I had multiple sclerosis. And, as time went on, they did different MRIs and they were able to rule different things out. And so the stroke became the final diagnosis. And like I said, I had multiple TIAs, and before I had my last stroke in 2013. And so the point is, when I realized that this procedure is something that has to become part of my, well, not has to, but it's going to become part of my norm. Like if my health issues are like this is what accommodates that, or what accompanies, I should say. So this is what accompanies that. So that then means that I can either allow myself to be terrified every freaking time I have to have an MRI, or I can figure out how to get on top of my fear. And not for nothing, but it's like, dude, if I'm gonna beat a stroke, I'm not gonna let an MRI be the thing to take me out. You know what I mean? Like if I'm gonna survive a stroke, whether it's a major stroke or a mini stroke, I am not about to allow my anxiety to be what takes me out. And so again, I think that some of it, something is to be said about having a spirit of determination, where I'm not gonna let nothing beat me. Like it's only gonna beat me until I can figure it out. And once it beats me, I'm working on figuring it out. And I think that's that goes to my spirit of competitiveness as well. But the point is, how did I do it? I understood I need to figure out how to put my mind at rest, right? Because what would happen for me, so whether we're talking about with the claustrophobia, whether we're talking about with the fears, my anxiety would be triggered. And anybody that has ever dealt with anxiety, or panic attacks, like your heart is racing, like you just kind of get real shaky, real nervous, and your head is kind of hurting too. Like, so it's a lot of different things that's going on with your body all at the same time. So you have to find a way to keep yourself calm, right? And it's really the same thing with fears, because the fear triggers these different, I don't want to say emotions, but these different behaviors. And so for me, it's like, okay, I understand that I got to get in this, I'm going to call it a contraption because I felt trapped. But I understand that I have to get in this machine, and I got to be here for a whole lot longer than I want to be. But there's nothing I can do about it because they still don't know, why am I having these strokes? Why is this happening? Like first when I was right at 25, and then I was like 29, and then 32. And like it was a lot of different things happening. But the point is, I began to figure out ways to calm my mind. So while I was inside of the device, and again, this, if you're not a believer, this particular thing ain't gonna work. But um I would either spend my time just literally talking to God, and not necessarily praying, right? So praying, to me, there's a difference between having a conversation with God and praying. Like praying is when I'm, talking, and I'm, whether it's an attitude of gratitude, like my mindset, I have a different mindset when I'm praying versus just when I'm talking to God. And I talk to God just like I talk to y'all. So it's like there'll be times when I'm just sitting there because God, he gives me peace. So it's like when I'm in communion with him, it keeps me calm. I can't be fearful and talking to God at the same time. Like talking to him just provides this sense of comfort. And so I would either do that, or I would just like be in there and I got my eyes closed and I would just quote different scriptures that I knew. And but I would do it very slowly. So again, keeping my body at rest, keeping my mind at rest. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He lead me inside. So it's like when you, and so even if you're not a believer, whatever your favorite thing is, like if you have a favorite TV show, replay the episode in your head. If you have a favorite book, then relive those lines, right? Like anything. And so whether you're talking about fear, anxiety, panic, whatever, anything that's going to calm your body down, calm your mind down. So prayer or meditation, and it's not always about movement, right? Because again, I had to literally lay still for 45 minutes straight, but I wasn't, my heart wasn't racing, I wasn't nervous, I wasn't. And so now, is it still uncomfortable for me? If I just did an MRI, what was it, a few weeks ago. So again, it's something that you constantly deal with or whatever, right? But the point is, now it's not something where is going to prevent me from wanting to have a checkup on my health. And so what happens when you have fear that are so strong that it's stopping you from being your best self, that is what I want to address. That's what we have to deal with, because you can't, so you don't want to be so afraid of what the doctor will say that you won't go see the doctor. You can't be so afraid of what the boss is going to say that you won't have that conversation. You can't be so afraid that you're going to fail that you don't even allow yourself to try. Right. So those are things that I'm saying. There will always be a time where, you may be nervous, something puts you where it's uneasy for you, right? Makes you feel uneasy. I actually think that part is a little natural. Hey, Paula, I think that that's natural, but you cannot allow things to stop you from doing what you are purposed to do. So I'm winding down. If anybody has any questions or anything, questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the comment section. If anybody is on Noon Vibe, and if you guys have a quick question or comment, feel free to come to the queue right now, to ask as I'm winding this down. But like I say, understand that this is definitely a safe space. This is not me judging anybody. It's one of the reasons why I'm always so transparent with my life, because I tell you guys all the time, I believe that whenever we go through something, we should grow through something. And when we grow through it, that we then share it with other people, because you never know who may be going through the exact same thing. And maybe you didn't have anybody to assist you through the process, but that doesn't mean that the next person shouldn't, right? Like anything that you can do to try to help lighten somebody else's load, whether directly or indirectly, I believe that we ought to do that, right? And so for me, I don't want to see whether you guys ever hire me to be your coach or not, whether you work with my business or not. Genuinely, I don't want to see anybody not being their best when it's so possible to be your best. Like you just have to be able to identify what's holding you back. And so this show was all about, if said thing is fear, let's let's let it not be for 2025. Like, what, figure it out, sit down, talk to yourself, determine, like, make your list, write it out. Was I successful in, as far as whatever your personal definition of success is? Was I successful this year? Did I achieve what I set out to do? If you did, two thumbs up for you, standing ovation and a round of applause, okay? Like, that is great. But many people are going to say, I did not do what I wanted to do. I did not do what I set out to do. And so my point is that then that next question should be, why? And if your answer boils down to fear, that was the purpose of this show, to help you to understand how to get to a place so that fear doesn't hold you back anymore, to understand that the fear does not have more power than you. And if it does, it's only because you are allowing it to. You have the ability to overcome your fear. Whether you have the mental fortitude on your own or not, I don't know. That's not for me to say. But even if you don't, it's too many people out here that you can talk to, whether it's family, whether it's friends, for those who are, in their head about talking to a professional. Sometimes it's like removing that anxiety. It doesn't take having somebody with a license to talk to. Sometimes it's just being able to get it off of you. So that way it's not just all rolling around in your head. For others, if you guys are open, and if you have talked to multiple people, but you find yourself still being bound and caught up by this thing, then maybe it does need to be another level of help where somebody can help you to identify, where did this fear begin? What started it? Because again, everything has a root, because you were not born with a fear. You were not born in fear. Something happened that made this thing attach itself, allow itself to be attached to you. And so the same way that it attached itself, whether it attached itself or you held on to it, you got the power to release it and let it go. You can do that and you can move forward. And again, that's not to say that now you're going to be best friends with the very thing that was making you feel a certain type of way. But it is to say that you should be able to move in spite of it. Like I was telling y'all about my bridge example. I ain't stop going, baby. I'm finna go get them beignets. Look, the bridge can do what the bridge is gonna do, because whether I'm scared of it or not, the bridge gonna do what the bridge does. But the only question is, am I going to allow, hey Charnel, am I going to allow the bridge doing what the bridge does to stop me from doing what I need to do? And so for me, my spirit of determination is just a lot stronger. And this is why I'm trying to tell y'all, like, I've suffered with anxiety, I've suffered with panic, I suffered with depression, I've suffered with all of these things where you did have to have like prescribed medication. I've had therapists, I've had all of that, but I'm now on the other side of it. You see what I'm trying to say? And I wish somebody would try to make me feel bad for what? Like, the other thing that you have to understand is, it's nothing wrong with having a problem. The problem is when you don't want to come with a solution. The problem is when you get comfortable being in your problem. That's what's problematic. But seeking help, getting somebody that can get you to work through it, because everything might not be something you can work through on your own. And that's okay. We were not designed to be, on an island by ourselves. No, we were designed to be helpers one to another. And so my help, that what I pray is help for you guys, is number one, to give you the permission to know that it's okay if you do have whatever the fears are, but don't allow them to keep holding you back. To my entrepreneurs out there, stop allowing fear to stop you from starting your business, fear of doing it by yourself, fear of messing up, fear of doing, I don't care what the fear is. If there is something that's in you, do it. The worst that can happen is that it doesn't do as good as you thought or you hoped that it would. But the best thing that happens is that now you can say that you did it. Whether it's people, if you're in relationships, if you want a new job, if you're trying to travel, like no matter what it is, understand that it is possible. And the only reason why you're not doing it is because you're not trying to figure out how, right? Don't let the fear stop you. Now, again, remember I told y'all this was not the end of the year show. So I am not insinuating that fear is the only reason. Like there could be a whole lot of other legitimate reasons why something didn't happen. And if that be the case, then that is the case. And that's not what this show is speaking to, right? So if you had health issues, if you had financial issues, this ain't that show. This ain't me saying that your health issues was fearful and so they ain't legitimate or your financial. This wasn't that. That's a whole different session that looks a whole different way. This show, this show was simply to say that if fear was the reason why you did not achieve what you set out to in the year 2024, let's make sure that we don't allow it to be the same reasons why we are not successful in 2025. So, anyway, guys, that's pretty much it. Again, I am going to be kind of up and down in my shows by for the end of this year because we are embarking upon holiday season. My desire, my goal is to be live this week, whether it be tomorrow or Thursday. I do want to be live this week. We may do a Christmas Eve show. Cause y'all know I gotta have a show where I sing some of my Christmas songs, but y'all can still hear how congested I am. So I'm gonna do everybody a favor, and this ain't gonna be the week. This ain't gonna be the week we sing nothing, okay? But we may do it either Monday or Tuesday or next week. But we will be consistently live starting the week of January 6th. There are some memberships I'm gonna be launching. Yes, let me see. Rochelle said everything you want is on the other side of fear, and that is quoted from Jack Canfield, and I totally agree. But there are going to be some memberships because I am officially launching the Educated and Empowered membership. I'll be telling you guys more about that, and I'm hoping that you guys don't just like me for free. I'm hoping. Like I'm hoping that when you start hearing about the membership opportunities that you guys will say, hey, you know what, it working with Tennille is something that I would like to do. I do want to level up. I do want to be a better version of myself. And that's really what we're going to be working on moving 2025 and beyond. The mantra is we are going to thrive in 2025. And if you believe that and claim it, feel free to put it in the comment section. But I'm going to thrive in 2025. And so, in either case, guys, let me see. My daughter says, Mom, I'm afraid of fill in a blank, but I'm going to do it afraid. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is, see, Kimberly, you got the point that I'm making. Like the fear may not stop being a thing, but it should stop being able to control what you do. That's exactly the point that I'm making. Thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, Nate, thank you so much for joining. Thanks to everybody, whether you watch this on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you listen on Known Vibe. I appreciate you guys so much. And like I say, it's going to be so much more. I'm probably going to have just a show where I talk about educated and empowered and what all you guys will get from that officially. Because for all the years you guys have been connected to me, whether it's as an author and reading my books, as a filmmaker, watching my films, listening to my music, like being a part of my organizations, attending my events, everything that I do, what I do is I educate and empower. This is what I do. My podcast, regardless of the name of the podcast, this is my purpose, is to educate and empower. But we are, making everything official starting in 2025. And I want to, like I say, one day I'm gonna go live, if not tomorrow, Thursday, something like that, and just really give you guys, I want to lay it out for you all. And I'm hoping that you all, and even if it's not you, because I understand that everybody is not my market. That's something I tell y'all when we do our professional development shows. If you're an entrepreneur and somebody say, who is your target market? And if you say everybody, baby, we gonna know. So I am aware everybody is not my target audience, but to those of you who listen to me, maybe it's you and maybe it's not you, but you know someone who it is. Understand that the memberships are going to be economically feasible. Understand we're going to have so much stuff involved, and I'm not at this hour about to start talking about that, but I'm going to finish this show by saying thank you all to all of the people. I can't even, I was talking to everybody when y'all was coming in, but y'all didn't just multiply so exponentially. But no, from the bottom of my heart, I thank all of y'all that are tuned in over on Noon Vibe. Thank you to everybody that is watching everywhere else. Thank you guys so much. And again, remember, if you enjoyed this show, please like the show, like it. You can share it out or tag somebody that you believe would benefit from this broadcast. Thank you all so much. And until next time, you guys stay encouraged.